Hey guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is episode number 5 for Classic Albums Revisited. So the last one that I did was on Moondance by Van Morrison. I'm going to review an album that has reached its 50th anniversary a few months ago, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. And this is their 11th album, and this is really their most popular album throughout their entire career. And as you can see, I have got the album on vinyl, which is a remaster. I'm still really fussy to find an original pressing of this album. And I've also got the remastered CD, which contains both the mono and the stereo versions, which is amazing. And it also includes the Hang On To Your Ego bonus track. So, Pet Sounds. What can be said about this? Pretty much a lot of things, because this is an album that really means so much to me, both musically and as a musician. And this is in my top 3 from my list of my 25 albums of all time. I just love it that much. And it came out in 1966, and it has 13 tracks, and it is more than 35 minutes long. So this is an album that I will never, ever get tired of listening to for all eternity, because every time I listen to this album, I think to myself, how the hell did they do that? And it is one of the greatest, seminal, cleverly done, and most pinnacle albums in music, period. And when this album came out, it went to number 10 in the charts, but in later reviews and ratings, this has been regarded to some people as the greatest album of all time. I can understand why, since this album is so darn special. So this album is full of a new change of style and music because of Brian Wilson's decision to make an album that really means something incredibly unique and full of royalty. And the inspiration behind this album was Rubber Soul by the Beatles. And when this album came out, John Lennon and Paul McCartney played the album, and it became a huge inspiration for my favourite album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which came out the next year. And that really blew my mind when I first heard it, and it's just so incredible that so many legends are so inspired by another legend's piece of work. So when the rest of the Beach Boys first heard about this new change, they were not too keen and so unsure about it, but they eventually did it in the end, and this huge band, or huge ensemble, whatever, named the Wrecking Crew, took part to do these sessions for the instrumentation. And the way Brian did it, he was basically conducting the Wrecking Crew, telling them what to do this and that, and there's tons of effort and time that both Brian and the Wrecking Crew did in the studio, and it just worked tremendously well. And also, I highly recommend a box set named Behind the Sounds, which is basically the sessions in the studio from these tracks, tons of false starts and different takes, and also there are a lot of vocal tracks, no music, just the vocals from Brian and the Beach Boys, and it's wonderful to listen to, and I highly recommend that box set. It's incredible stuff. So This album musically is mainly full of psychedelia and baroque pop, but there are sounds on here that is unique, and you'll hear sounds from the saxophones to the percussion and some clean electric guitar work and some effects and all that stuff. And the obvious singles on this album are Wouldn't It Be Nice, Sloop John B, and God Only Knows. Those three I love so much, but God Only Knows is the highlight on the album. God Only Knows is particularly one of my very top favourite songs of all time. Same with Wouldn't It Be Nice. And I never knew that Sloop John B is actually a cover. I totally thought it was their original piece, but no, it's a cover. So at least that's something interesting. There are other tracks on here I love as much as the singles, like I'm Waiting for the Day, which is very catchy, and also two instrumentals, Let's Go Away for a While, which is a laid-back, adventurous type of piece, and Pet Sounds, which is an exciting and wild track, and tracks like I Just Wasn't Made for These Times include some of Wilson's most greatest, well, one of the greatest vocal performances ever, along with another song like Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, which is more of a classical inspired kind of piece that's just so gorgeous and beautiful to listen to. And once again, amazing vocals from Brian. And the rest of the Beach Boys did their vocal parts from other tracks like That's Not Me, Here Today, and Brian Wilson himself just did tremendously incredible stuff. And without Brian Wilson, Pet Sounds wouldn't have happened. I mean, I adore the man himself, and he's one of my biggest idols as a musician forever, you know. And the production of this album is fantastic. You can hear every single thing, note by note, crystal clear, with no problems whatsoever. And also, big props and thank you to Tony Asher for making this whole thing happen, from his collaborative work with Brian from the beginning to the ending, finishing touches for Pet Sounds. And I went to see Brian Wilson and his band playing tons of Beach Boys tracks, and some from his album No Peer Pressure, but when they played the whole Pet Sounds album, it was an extraordinary experience, and I loved it so much. Despite that, Brian was ill at the time, and Al Jardine's son had to help him out on some of the high notes, and Al's son is also a brilliant vocalist. So the Wilson brothers, Mike Love and Al Jardine, are incredible vocalists, and in terms of the best vocal harmony groups, I would say the Beach Boys, because I always love the way that they sing these lyrics and put their heart and soul to the vocals, and it just always gives me chills down my spine. Of course, there are other great groups that have harmony vocals, like the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel, the band, etc. But I always think that the Beach Boys have some of the greatest, if not the greatest, harmonies for vocals. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that needed to be said about Pet Sounds. It's full of happiness, excitement, emotion, and it's one of the most unique albums ever, and that is pretty much all I've got to say about this album. The vocals, to the music, to the lyrics that are full of hard-hitting feelings, and very simple but heavily effective lyricism to the production, and I also love the cover art as well. Yeah, so I cannot recommend this album enough. So that is all I've got to say about Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Thank you guys for watching, and I will keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.